My name is Bobby Harrington, and I have the privilege of being the point leader for Discipleship.org. And the mission of Discipleship.org is to champion Jesus-style disciple making. So our vision is to see the day when disciple-making movements become the norm in homes, in communities, in churches, and in ministries throughout the land. I have two very special guests with me today. I feel really privileged to have them with me. The first is Jay Cranda, and I'd like to just tell you just a little bit about Jay, because in August of 2012, Jay took on the role as Saddleback's first full-time online campus pastor. And what that means is that he has the privilege to oversee a weekly crowd of 20,000 plus people, and then 900 to 1,000 online groups. And by the way, this is before the corona pandemic. So he's, I'm sure, got a lot more small groups than that. We'll learn. And then over 1,300 live. So Jay, we're so grateful to have you with us. And just want to give you a moment to bring a greeting, and then I'll introduce my second guest.
Yeah, thank you for having me on this call. I know a lot of people are trying to figure out streaming and groups and all sorts of things online, and I'm privileged to share any learnings we've had over the last 8-10 years.
Well, we look forward to hearing what you're going to have to say. My second guest is actually a really interesting character. Now, he's an interesting character on many levels. One of the levels is that he is a former Russian rock star. And after being a Russian rock star, and I'm going to describe that in just a second, he became a follower of Jesus. He's one of the co-founders of The Tribe, which is a church in Austin, Texas. But he's also a co-founder of Third Drive. And we're going to draw on his expertise with Third Drive because they're a marketing and business development company, and they're helping churches right now with this getting stuff online. So one of the things that I want to do, and he had no idea I was going to do this, is I just want everybody to see Christian Ray Flores in a former life. There he is. Yes. So that was evidently the theme song. Oh, now I got to turn it off here. That was evidently the theme song in 1994, where Christian Ray helped Boris Yeltsin to defeat communism in Russia. So, Christian, bring us a greeting.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, I definitely did not expect that introduction, especially a flashback from the 90s, right? But yeah, I'm really grateful to be part of this. Very privileged to even share this panel with Jay, who obviously has incredible experience. I want to learn from you, Jay. And I think for me, the reason I'm excited about this is that this is a time to boldly proclaim the gospel. This is a time where the church needs to be a light, and we need to lead the way in the virtual space. And the church historically has thrived in times of hardship, in times of trials, because Christians, if you're connected to God, you have peace in your heart, you are generous, you want to not shrink and sort of think about yourself, but you want to think of others, and you reach out to people. And then that faith shines in brightest in darkest and most anxious times, right? So I'm really excited to be part of this webinar.
All right. Well, we have a lot to cover. So, Christian, I'm going to start with you. And what we're going to do, folks, is I'm going to start off for the first couple with Christian, and then we're going to move to Jay. And we're just literally going to take it from hosting online services to having things like Facebook watch parties, to inviting people to online groups, how to have online groups, and then lastly, the best practices for true discipleship in online groups. So Christian, why don't you start off, and we're just going to give you a few minutes to give us some key bullet points about getting your church with an online service. How does the church do that?
Well, I think in general, the larger churches usually have staffs, and they're equipped usually, like Saddleback, for example. I'm sure they've been doing it for not for even years, but decades. So they're very equipped. And to me, my heart goes out to churches that are smaller or medium sized. Or some actually, you will be surprised how many churches of even 1,000 and more are still sort of lagging behind when it comes to media and virtual spaces, right? So to me, the most important things are that you have all of your virtual space, all of your online spaces are equipped for virtual connection. And I think especially, it was a reality yesterday and last week and last month, but today everybody just feels the urgency, right? So to me, here's a few things. One of them is what we are actually rolling out as a company, these coronavirus ready websites. So we're doing this urgent push for those churches that are just not equipped. They don't have it. Maybe their websites are outdated, their spaces are not connected. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to be able to equip churches to do like literally a several days, 1 week launch that is pre-wired for virtual church, right? And I think the key functionality that I'm looking for usually is, especially for times like this, is interfaces where people can reach their shepherds, their pastors, where they can set up an appointment virtually and talk and pray together and ask for advice, ask for guidance, have Bible studies. So that's, I think, having virtual access to your shepherds, that's really, really important. And as shepherds, we want to make ourselves available to as many people as possible. And there's ways to do it, I think, just to have that interface on the website where anybody can click on the person they want to connect, choose a time and connect virtually. The second one is clear messaging on the website about that services are not being had physically, which is, you'll be surprised how many people don't have that. And then people can show up at a building, just out of habit. We're creatures of habit. So we need that. We need to make sure people's calendars are updated. And then the next level, I think, is having an interface where you have a map where all the small groups meet, and how do you can connect to that small group on which day, what time, and how you can connect virtually to a small group. It's an incredible opportunity for us to create those things. And then you can share that information on, just really inspire people to go and proclaim the gospel and shine and not just shrink. So you can use all kinds of social platforms to say, hey, I'm having a Bible study on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Will you join us virtually? Here's the link. You can do that on Facebook, on Instagram. You can do it on Nextdoor. A lot of people are staying home right now. And there's an app that is basically people in your neighborhood. And you can say, hey, I know, we're all socially distancing ourselves. How about a Bible study? How about some prayer? How about we talk about how you're feeling about these things? And then the other thing that I focus on.
Christian,
go ahead.
I have a question for you. Right now, if I'm watching this and I'm a church leader and maybe I got a small church and I'm trying to figure out how do I get online, if you could recommend the top thing to do to get my services or even me at my house talking to people online, what's number one, number two, number three?
Well, I think number one is making sure you have a very clear sign on your website that church is not happening in a physical space, right? Number two is saying, where do I go?
Zoom?
We use Facebook Live, and the reason we're using Zoom connected to Facebook Live. And the reason for that is you can do it, for example, on YouTube, right? But on YouTube doesn't have enough of a social sort of ecosystem. Facebook allows people to have watch parties. So let's say we go live this last Sunday, right? We go live, and I basically welcome everyone. We pray, and I say, guys, how about we share this? Share this on your page. Click on have a watch party right now. And it amplifies the signals. It goes viral, basically. So a church that has, let's say, a Sunday attendance of, let's say, a couple of hundred can have a Sunday attendance virtually of 4,000 or 5,000 quite easily.
Okay,
so it's really remarkable of the effect that you can have and the impact you can have.
Okay, so what you would say then is, first off, if you just want to do Zoom and channel Zoom through Facebook Live. Jay, let me draw you in here and see if there's anything you'd like to chime in with.
Yeah, I think for most churches, if you're kind of under, let's say, the 200 mark, just going live from your phone with a nice setup, like get some, like make sure your hand isn't shaky, have like a tripod or something connected to your phone. That's a very beginner level entry type of experience. Be aware of lighting and quality. I would definitely recommend, Facebook does this great thing where you could go live privately, meaning that you could be the only one that sees it. So make sure you test it prior than Sunday morning. You don't want Sunday morning to be the first time you do it. And that's entry level. The next level is Facebook has some different things you can do, and YouTube. Facebook and YouTube have something called Premiere, where you can actually pre-record a whole message from your phone. You can even spin up, iMovie on your computer, or get even, next level. And you can actually upload a video both to Facebook and YouTube. And you could say, go live at 9 a.m. and both Facebook and YouTube will treat that uploaded video like a live event, and it will spin up a chat. And that's one of the easiest ways where you don't have to worry about bandwidth or streaming or anything not working. You allow Facebook and YouTube to actually do all that. So it's all pre-recorded. You know what's going to happen. Sometimes when you're live, you're worried about saying the wrong thing or it not, working smoothly. But check out the Facebook Premiere and the YouTube Premiere functionality. It's in the process. Upload the video and you check it and you schedule it. I will say, and this is something our church has walked through, some of our campuses are experimenting with this feature, is that it will take some time for long videos to be processed. So don't think I can just upload it Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and it will be ready. It might take a few hours for Facebook to process that video. So I would try to get everything set up, let's say Friday or Saturday morning, so that it's ready for Sunday. But then what you do is you just enter the chat like normal. You just host the chat. You go in and you say hi to people. But that's a really easy way to kind of manage it. Then the next version of that is jumping to like something that's a little bit more robust, and you'll need like streaming software like an OBS or a Wirecast or some other software that allows you to kind of have multiple camera angles, and then that allows you to output to a bunch of platforms. But you only do that if you want to do like a live capture. But I would really recommend checking out Facebook Premiere or YouTube Premiere, and then that other software allows you, like the OBS, the Wirecast, that allows you to do stuff on your website, which I do think Facebook and social media are really good for exposure and ease of use, but a website streaming experience is really preferred as you kind of grow and mature in figuring this out, as a lot of us will be in the next 3 to 8 weeks, because you want traffic to happen on your website because you can control that experience. It tends to be a better retention. If you look at retention numbers, meaning how long do people watch, Facebook and YouTube, people drop off after a couple seconds pretty quickly. But if people go to your website, they tend to stay, because the habit is on Facebook and YouTube, anytime you get a red notification, you click on it and you leave. Or on your website, people have the habit of just opening a new window. And so those are some of the platforms I would try to lean through, and at least the crawl, walk, run type of experience.
Oh, that's great. Okay,
that's
let's
really good.
Talk about what it means to use Facebook to kind of build an audience or get a conversation going. So Christian, if you can talk to us about using Facebook for things like watch parties and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it's what Jay was telling us about the website is really, really fantastic and really important. I'm actually really curious about the platform you use to embed the stuff, so I'll maybe hit you up later with some questions.
Oh, hey, by the way, let me say to everybody, I'm going to ask from both Jay and Christian for the top 5 resources, and then we'll send that out to everybody who's signed up for the webinar. So afterwards, I want to get from you your top 5 resources to help people. I'm sorry, Christian, keep going.
Yeah, so Facebook is fantastic because of the viral potential. I mean, that's essentially what it is. And it's because most people are on Facebook, even though obviously some of the youngest people have 3 teenagers and they think Facebook is for old people, but they're still on Facebook, So when it comes to critical mass, the most people you'll find they're really on Facebook. So it's a great social there's a social dynamic to this and an interactive dynamic to this that's really, really cool, because people comment, people like, people put hearts there, they ask questions. You can say hi to a few people. It's fun, right? It's interactive and it's fun. And obviously people even chime off of each other during the live comment. And there's an interactive capacity, a quality to it that is really engaging. And of course, the watch parties. The watch parties are a great amplifier of the message. So it's basically every once in a while saying, hey, if you just joined us, please click on have a watch party so that your friends can watch it with me.
Christian, tell people how to do a watch party. Like, just walk me through. How do I do it? Let's assume that I know Sunday morning at 9:30 we're going to have a service. It's going to be on Facebook Live. How do I set up a watch party?
Well, basically, when you see the Facebook Live window pop up, literally right under that screen, there's an invitation, a call to action, it's called, that basically says, click here to have a watch party. And you just click there. Facebook makes it very, very easy for you to,
so
very intuitive for you to respond.
I can't do it in advance. I've got to do it in real time.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it has to be in real time.
Yeah, Jay, jump in. You're shaking your head.
I mean, Facebook is always rolling out different things, but essentially you can't really schedule a watch party. You pick a media file and you go live right then, because essentially they're saying like you're ready to go. I will say I've had experience with this navigating on Facebook. Sometimes you're trying to find it. The trick with Facebook watch parties is you have to hit the 3 dots. So when you go to post, there'll be a dot, there's 3 dots, and it will open up more options. And the Facebook watch party is always buried in the more options. And because they do so many things, so that's just like a pro tip. I was just doing this recently. I was like, where is the Facebook watch party button? And I was like, oh, it's in the more options, and it's like, it's buried away. But I believe you can't schedule it. You have to do it right then. And the idea is that you just kind of go in. But when you do it, like Christian was talking about, essentially you just select a media file. You either pick a live service, you pick a pre-recorded thing, something that's existing either from a page you're an admin of, and then that allows you to kind of gather at that moment.
Okay, great. Keep going, Christian.
Yeah, so I think, the other thing you could do is you could sort of prime the pump a little bit, right? You can get people excited ahead of time. I think leadership is key. It's not, the technology is neutral. It's how you use it, right? So if you want to get your church excited, just tell them, look, this is a time to shine. You are socially distanced. You're staying at home anyway. Might as well make a difference in people's lives. So, and having sort of a few Facebook Lives even before Sunday service, where you go live and say, guys, are you excited about Sunday? Here's what we're going to be talking about. Here's what we're going to be discussing. Here's the value that this will bring to the people who are listening to this message. In times of trouble, you're going to get inspiration. You're going to get an invitation to connect to God. There's an opportunity to for example, I did a small Facebook live thing today I started a series called Coronavirus Positives. And basically saying, look, in the times where you're bombarded by media that is so negative from every device, every screen, how about we find some positives? So today the theme was from Psalm 46, where God says, be quiet, be still, and know that I am God. Well, you have an opportunity to be still. That's a positive, right? You can sit down, you can have some prayer time, you can acknowledge the existence of God and his power in your life. So things like that, these little seeds of faith and excitement, and equipping people to understand, I can use these little insights. I can get excited about Sunday. And then you sort of train them on what to do and how to act and how to think about it.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so let's talk, Jay, when somebody's doing a Facebook watch party, and I've been inviting my friends, I'm getting my small group, because I'm thinking small group, online small group. What are some strategies to get your friends to invite friends and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think your church overall, no matter how big or small you are, you're thinking about how to have large gatherings and small gatherings. And you're thinking about empowering people to do that, because as people are limited to just being in their homes for, this indefinite amount of time, you want both happening. And so your church is handling the large gathering. At least you're trying to. You're trying to problem solve this right now with Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Another platform is the Church Online platform, is a great tool that allows you to embed and have experiences there. And that's free and open to anybody, the Church Online platform. But then small gatherings. And the real important thing is I would really lean towards picking a platform, and it can be Facebook Watch Party, it could be Zoom, it can be Google Hangout, Skype, but don't really force it. I have found with having tons of online groups is that people tend to have their preferences, how they want to meet with their friends. The key is they haven't thought about that preference as maybe a group. They just think of it, this is how I meet with my friends. And so the idea is now we're being forced to figure this out. You know, the joke the last week has been with all my friends has been like, now everyone's an online pastor. And so, and my role is now normal. And so what I would zero in on is I really suggest either finding on YouTube or recording yourself. Record a quick like screen capture with your computer software, whatever you got, or find one on YouTube. It's like, this is how you use Zoom. And then the idea is that you send that to every key volunteer, every small group leader that you have, Bible study leader. And the idea is you want to get away from having to be tech support, and you want to train as many people as possible. So trust me, if you record it yourself, if you just search on YouTube, Zoom tutorial, Skype tutorial, there are tons out there. You know, make sure that they're like appropriate, you know. But I want to encourage you. You do not need to jump on a phone or a call every time someone asks a question. There are tons of tutorials that are out there, and at least you can get 80% of the people to figure it out themselves. And then the people that really need help, then you get on a phone call, you do it. But really a normal online group is very simple. You pick a platform, they meet, and then when they talk about whatever the curriculum that you're using, you just talk about it, and then they end. And so they can either meet by video conferencing, like Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts. They could even do a group phone call. If somebody's really having technical issues, a group phone call works the same, where you could just call everybody and merge a call together. We have many groups that do that, where they just literally do a group phone call. And so those are like very simple steps just to kind of get going. A watch party, the key with a Facebook watch party is that you need video content. So if your small group strategy or your Bible study strategy doesn't have video curriculum, then a watch party would not be a good tool. And you need to make sure you have it right. So like, for example, if your church is using a curriculum from some other third party, I bet you won't be able to upload it to Facebook without getting, in some legal trouble. But then if that's the issue, then just use Zoom or Skype or Google Hangouts and use the share your screen feature, where you can share your screen, you guys can watch the video together. But those are some simple steps as you kind of get going.
Hey Jay, I was going over some of the stuff that you teach, and one of the things you said is if you can draw people to a watch party, maybe they're your friends, they don't go to church, but they watch the service with you. And then if you bring up something like, hey, we're going to have a small group, and here, based on what we were talking about in the service, just want everybody to know, here are 3 questions. And you were saying an amazing number of those people will actually join the small group afterwards. Can you talk to us about that? Yeah,
so I think, in our church, and a lot of churches are trying to figure this out, but we're trying to get people into groups of people the easiest way as possible, meaning the barrier of entry is really small. And so I think, every church of different sizes have different approaches to this, but what we're trying to do is how can we encourage people to gather regularly? And one of the simplest ways is by empowering individuals to host their own groups. And so, the more that you expect out of that person, the less you're going to get a response. So for example, if you're expecting everybody to be a Bible scholar, and to be able to answer every question, you're not going to get that many people to sign up. But if you ask individuals just to be a host, a facilitator, you're going to get a lot more people. So one of the simplest ways I would say this is to encourage people to meet and use questions based off your weekend sermon. And so what I mean by that is instead of having to go out and purchase, some kind of video small group material, which are good options, I would actually just say, spin up a new volunteer team that writes 3 to 5 discussion questions off of your pastors or your teaching team's weekend message. And then the idea is that you email out these questions every, let's say, Sunday night. And then immediately what you have is anybody can do an online group now, is you say, hey, We're going to send you questions Sunday evening, watch the weekend message, and then we're going to have 5 discussion questions to go deeper. So let's say you talk about the book of John and this piece of scripture. The person has, here are 5 questions to go deeper. And then the idea is on your video conference call or your phone call is the host literally just goes, okay, the first question we're going to talk about is, Jesus says this in the parable, pastor said this, what made sense, what didn't, or pastor said the challenge is to invite one friend on Facebook. Who's the friend you're inviting? And then overnight you have small group material and you have a way for everybody to do online groups without having to spend any more money. You empower somebody to launch that immediately.
Oh, that's great.
That's exactly true. And I was going to add that, what I'm doing is I'm basically just processing some of these 1-minute coronavirus positives messages into a very simple 1 scripture, 2-3 questions things and disseminating it to our small group leaders. That's a very, very easy thing to do. And you can do it alone. You can have a whole team doing things like that, right? The other thing I was going to mention is that if you have if you have teenagers in your church, teenagers are very, very connected usually, right? And our kids in our youth and family ministry in the church, it's not just about doing sort of accountability and praying together, but it's really about connecting shoulder to shoulder. So what they're doing is they're having these Netflix watch parties that are a new thing that was enabled. I think you have to have a Chrome browser, but if you can literally sync up a movie and watch it together and comment back and forth while you're watching the movie. And so it's a really fantastic, almost a healing thing because they feel anxiety being separated from their friends, right? And they can feel that they can do fun stuff together, shoulder to shoulder.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk if we can. Jay, I want to transition back to you. And if you can talk to us a little bit about doing groups online, like the best platforms, and then let's come back and talk about the transition, how we can get our entire church online in groups. And as we've been talking about, invite a lot of people from our communities to watch our services, perhaps to just go from these watch parties to online groups, or sometimes they won't even need to go through watching your services. You can just invite them to an online group. So talk to us about that, Jay. Start maybe if you could with some platforms you'd recommend and then some strategies to transition.
Yeah, of course. And I think the simple idea here is that you want to encourage groups of people to meet with their friends online. So the key there is their friends meeting. This is why their friends need to determine what platforms there are. And for sure recommend, for example, you're talking about teenagers, a popular platform that I know of that I don't use is House Party. It's a phone-based app that allows you to kind of host video chats. And it's very popular with teenagers. But it's not a platform as somebody who's in their early 30s. I don't use it. But I think this is what you'll find is people use all sorts of things. When we first started doing online groups, people were using GoToMyPC, Cisco video software. I mean, there were all sorts of things that kind of existed. And now a lot of the tools have just become, the main ones are Zoom, Google Hangouts, and Skype. And recently, Facebook video groups have started to pop up. And the idea, what I love personally, we really recommend Zoom. There are some limitations. They have a 40-minute limitation if you don't have a paid account. I've been hearing a lot of rumors lately that they're going to waive this in the next couple of weeks for churches, but I have not seen this. I think
they've done this for schools, I think.
Yeah, they've done it for schools.
Done this for schools. Yeah.
Yeah, they've done it in parts of Asia. Yeah.
And even if you have to pay, I think it's only like, $15+ per month to have a group that you're hosting on Zoom.
Yeah,
so.
But the thing about Zoom, what makes it really nice is it's a single click entry, where Skype and Google Hangouts have some limitations around contacts. I think Google Hangouts has cleaned this up recently, but Google Hangouts too is primarily, at least, it's web-based. And so a lot of the processing is in a browser, where Zoom is software natively on your computer or on your phone. And that tends to clean up a lot of the issues that with lagging. You will notice Zoom has a lot of users right now, so they're having some issues. Their stock is like doubled or tripled. Yeah, I know. I owned some Zoom stock about 6 months ago, and I sold it, and I'm really bummed I did. But anyway, side point. What I like about Zoom is that it's single-click entry, and people can schedule it on their calendar so that there's a lot of communication. And so, like, people tend to, hey, how do I join that? Well, it's on your calendar, and you click on it. And so your small group can seamlessly use it. You also have the ability on Zoom very seamlessly to mute people, which you do need. Once you have 10, 15 people on a call, trust me, there's always one person that doesn't understand they're not muted, and they'll start to, like, somehow get tinfoil and keys out. I don't know where that was. And they're just making all this noise. At my church, actually, last night, all of our kids' small groups did Zoom meetings. So my first grade small group did a Zoom meeting, and my third grader had a Zoom meeting. And it was kind of really interesting to listen in on their conversations. But trust me, first graders and third graders were just yelling. They don't know how to mute and unmute. So the host could just mute everybody and could individually unmute people when he went to a kid. And so Zoom is a great one. Google Hangouts is really seamless too. I think it's a little bit more complicated to use. And then Skype. Skype tends to be obviously more international as you kind of roll out, because a lot of people, it's been the dominant platform. But I really would recommend Facebook groups as well, Facebook video calling, because everybody already has a Facebook account and you can seamlessly engage. But the key with your online groups is that there are two spaces to understand. There is the live meeting space like Zoom, Google Hangouts, or Facebook group calling, or Skype. And then there's like home base. And what I mean by home base is that's where you hang out 24/7. And home base can be a literal Facebook group that you create just for your small group. It could be a text messaging thread, or it could be like on Slack or some other service. And the idea is that, think of it like most of us, like I do this with my brothers. My brothers and I are all spread out around the country. And so we have a text thread where we continually stay up to date. And then when we want to meet, we jump on a phone call or on a Zoom call. Your online groups are going to have a similar type of thing. And home base doesn't need to be the same software that you meet on. So you can have a Facebook group that's free, and you guys can update continually or just all text each other. And then when you meet, you post in the group or in the text thread, hey, by the way, we're going to meet on this link right now, or we're going to meet on Google Hangouts. But those are kind of the most standard platforms I would really recommend right out of the gate.
That's great stuff, Jay. Christian, you want to jump in and add anything?
No, I think you unpacked it really, really well. I think my thought is that it's true. Is you can try to all you want to say, okay, everybody, let's go on this platform, and it never works. It never works because everybody has a preference, right? There's for a group me, for example, is a thing that all kinds of people do. And the idea here is not about the platform. It's about leadership, about inspiring people to use their faith proactively and be a light in the world, and then giving them some guidance. I think what Jay said about there's all kinds of tutorials. You don't need to be at the tech support. I think that's a great point. There's all kinds of tutorials. What I usually do is when I have a set of questions that I can predict people will have, I usually type out in an Evernote document with like 5 points. This is the things you need to do. Here are the links that you need to go for. And then the Evernote platform allows you to have like a link, create that note and share it as a link. So it's like a website page. So like I have these boilerplate things that I use. And if people want to know, I would say, hey, look at this, and that's it. It's very efficient and helpful. But bottom line is, it's really about God's people going forward and proclaiming the gospel, and then us just saying, hey, let's do it over here. And that's it.
Yeah, I wanted to add real quick one thing about the paid account. If you're a smaller church and you're like, well, I can't obviously buy a paid account for every host. I totally understand that. There are other ways. One option to consider is that you are able to buy one account and make it a permanent link. And you could hypothetically treat it like a virtual conference room and schedule out the room. There are some limitations. Understand it will be a public space, so people can kind of jump in and out. But you could buy, let's say, 3 individual, rooms or accounts and make them permanent links and schedule it out on a Google Sheet or something and treat it like a virtual conference room. That's definitely one suggestion just to consider.
Okay, good. I want to talk about discipling the disciple makers who will be leading these groups. But before I do that, let's talk about how one of the things that you can do on Zoom and some other platforms is that you can have a group of people together. Say you've got 20 or 30 people together. Maybe you've just got 12 together. You can do breakout groups where you can literally send people to breakout groups for sub-discussions. So, for example, if I'm leading a group and like I have a regular, we call them home groups on Monday nights, and sometimes we like to break up where the guys are just together and the gals are just together. And so you can literally break up on Zoom. Say you're going to break apart for, 30 minutes out of the hour and a half that you're together, and you can have these private conversations. Jay, do you want to say anything about your experience with that?
Yeah, so a lot of these video conferencing platforms just have there's a click of a button. I think on Zoom it's breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, you might go, what does that mean? So like, for example, you could, if you wanted to, if you're, one of the struggles with online groups is that you're trying to teach a new paradigm. And I do think it's like the internet. The internet doesn't make sense until you use the internet. If you try to explain the internet to a new person, it's like, what? And then once they use it, they get it. The same thing with online groups. Once they start meeting, once your people that know each other start to do this and just interact, they'll go, oh, this is pretty simple. And so breakout rooms, what it allows you to do is that what you could do for a trial period, if you wanted to help your whole church figure out online groups, you could do a centralized online group, and you could have a very large group. So let's say you get 50 people on a Zoom call, and then what you would do is that you would do some teaching up front, and you would say, we're going to break out into groups. And then there's a button as the host where you select, and it will do a couple options. You could select individual people to be placed, or you could just automatically break people into groups of 3. And then what you do is you automatically able to have all these mini rooms. And then what you would do is when you end your teaching or whatever, pre-part you're going to say is you go, guys, in the chat, here are the 3 questions we're going to talk about. And you hit, and so when I hit this button, we're going to be broken up into a bunch of smaller rooms. You guys just walk through these 3 questions. And then you say at the end, we're going to pull you back up and we're going to kind of corporately gather again. And that allows you to kind of seamlessly do it. As the host, you're able to pop into the rooms as well and kind of check in on people. And my suggestion is, again, with anything, these are features you do not want to do real time. You want to test it out. So get a couple people on, test it out. And I believe it is something on the Zoom website in your account you have to enable before you go live the first time. So it's a checkbox in the settings. But it's a really powerful, it's a very powerful tool to use. But the key is if you did that, let's say you as the pastor modeled online groups in a large setting for 3 weeks, what you do is you are teaching them what an online group is. And by the 4th week, you go, hey guys, we're no longer going to gather together as a group. You guys are just going to meet separately. And now you've kind of taught them what they need to do. And now you can kind of spin them off. And that's the way you kind of multiply. That's
great. Now, one of the things that we really champion is Jesus-style disciple making. And what that means is that we don't want to it's not just a group of friends, although friendship's involved, but we want to engage people in what it means to be a disciple, which is to be somebody who's following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and committed to the mission of Jesus. So, Christian, I know that you care at a core that at Tribe, that it's really all about being disciples who make disciples. So with the leaders of your groups, what are you doing online to help them be prepared so that they're equipped to disciple the people in their groups?
So what we're doing is we're basically modeling that disciple making is not limited to just physical presence, right? So we're having Bible studies, individual Bible studies with people who want to either place membership and align themselves with the church or just learn about the Bible. If they're not in the faith, or adjust their little lifestyle and their commitment. And then what we're doing is we're publishing these online testimonies. We call them tribe stories. So we used to do it in physical form, right? We have these tribe stories about the just journeys of faith and the voices of the community saying, this is how this particular topic is playing out or manifesting in my life. But then we can do exactly the same thing virtually, right? So we're actually finishing up a Bible study with someone right now, my wife is, and we're going to have a baptism, and then we're going to have that person come online and say, this is my journey. So this is an ongoing cloud of conversations that can be happening. And I think it empowers, just like Jay says. He says you show them this can be done. You can touch a life, change somebody's life with the Word of God, and pray for them, and then you can hear the result, the outcome of this. You can do this too. So once people get more acquainted with the technology and and how intuitive some of this stuff is, they can. It's a viral effect, in my opinion.
No, that's good. So I want to talk about really being committed to discipling people in these groups. Now, Christian, you know, and I think Jay knows that I continue to serve as a lead pastor of a church while wearing other disciple-making hats nationally. But one of the things that is important to me and to the disciple-making tribe is that at some level it's got to be life on life, people helping people to be genuine disciples of Jesus. And I have a lot of friends in national disciple-making circles who just really push back on the whole online thing. They think that you can't really have the kind of dialogue and the kind of life on life online. And surely face-to-face, life on life, heart-to-heart, step by step is the best. But we're living in a time where that's not an option, and it's probably not going to be an option for several months for us to do. So last summer, I was trying to learn more about intentional disciple making, and I invited some guys in my church, some leaders and future leaders that I wanted to invest in, and we tried a hybrid, which emphasized meeting on Zoom. So it's a disciple-making environment that we call the transparent space. Alex Absalom and I did some work on this, published a book on it, on the different types of spaces. And the most impactful is the one that Jesus had with Peter, James, and John, which we call the transparent space. So I invited guys into this group, and I've got to tell you, we started last summer. It's been a fantastic experience. So I wanted to share just real quickly 4 keys when you're really starting to build more of a long-term connection in discipling relationships. What I really appreciate about Jay is he's got a great handle on how to engage people, how to engage your friends, and to invite them into these relationships. So I want to talk now about helping people to really dig in a little bit deeper. And by the way, when I say this, we define disciple making that it begins at hello. Like Jesus was making disciples of the disciples before they were converted. So disciple making begins from just engaging people who don't even know about Jesus, and it ends with sending people out where they're making disciples and pursuing the mission of Jesus. So I thought, how can I summarize all this? And I have 4 keys that I'd like to mention as a great way, I think, to summarize this model. And in fact, I'm going to put a link up for anybody who'd like to maybe find out a little bit more about this, because I think it's such an important part today. And so let me just tell you, I'm going to use alliteration to describe them. The first is to make a good covenant. The second is to provide ongoing communication. The third one is to genuinely care. And then the fourth one is to continue it. So I'd like to show you just a little bit about forming a covenant. Now, the link that I put on the chat box there is just an example. The model that we use is not necessarily the right model for everybody to use, but as we're going to see, I think it can be a helpful model of a covenant. And I'll encourage everybody that if you download that How to Start a Discipleship Group that I've sent you a link to, what you're going to find is that we've mapped out a covenant that just lays out what it means to commit. So just so it's clear with everybody, we're not talking about in the front phase. I think a lot of times we just need to have introductory groups of 4, 5, 6 weeks where it's people getting to know one another. And then you ask the question, hey, do you really want to engage in, let's let's try to dig deeper with each other. So in my current group, we have a Muslim man who's a part of our group, and then we have church leaders, and it's actually been a fantastic mix. And the guys are super regular to the meetings because we formed a covenant like the one described in the link that I sent to you. The second part is communication. I think a lot of people think of discipleship as a class or of a group, and it's not. It's sharing life on life. So there should be daily texts, phone calls. There's different ways of communication, like what Jay mentioned, that we would recommend to everybody, so that you have your weekly meeting, which we'd recommend. When you can, of course, you want to be serving those in need. You want to be Sabbathing. You want to be doing other things with people. But while we're online, regular communication is super important. And that leads to the third, what I call the third C, and that's really caring about each other. Can I just pause for a second here and say, there are a lot of people who are really scared about what's going on. And, the stock market's crashing. We're hearing about all these people infected and the potential of death. And it's really easy to miss caring for like the people in our group and just, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling about these things? It's super important now and really always. And then the last thing is, and this is hard for people, but I just want to say it. We've got to carry it on. We've got to continue and invite other people. There are too many churches with too many people who just stay together and it's all about them. It's not about the mission of Jesus of reaching people. So one of the real signs of a healthy group is that you'll maybe get in depth. No, not maybe. We want you to get in depth. To have a good life-changing experience and then encourage people to go out from there and carry it on. So I just wanted to share kind of the depth of that with you all. And by the way, I finally found the document that I was talking about. So I want to show it to you on the screen just in terms of the whole covenant idea. So in that document, we have the discipleship group covenant, and it just lays down what a group is like. And this has where you sign it. Lots of people don't sign it. They just say, okay, I'm in, I commit. I do think it's super important that you get people to commit. So let me pause there, let Christian respond, Jay respond, or add anything to what I've been saying.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I really appreciate what you said there. That's why I feel like I emphasize this. There's a heart and a window of opportunity here. People are hurting. People are losing their jobs. Some people are going to suffer health issues and things like that. The anxiety itself is a problem, right? And creating environments both on the website and on social media where you're accessible and you can speak to people and you can be present in their lives is absolutely crucial. And you can't replace that with anything else, right? And technology just helps us with that. And the other is that it sort of pushes us as a society, but also as the church, to realize this very, very clear thing that, I find churches sometimes are resistant to, is that technology is just a tool. It's not to replace our faith. It's just a tool. And the more people embrace this, the more people invest in this effort, expertise, the more impact you can have. One of the things that I encourage pastors to do is that, look, create video content and put it in a place on the website where people can choose in different categories. It could be Bible studies, devotionals, workshops, equipping saints for great works to the glory of God. And people don't like shooting video. The reason for that is because shooting video is really awkward. Like you stare at a machine and it just doesn't feel the same as standing behind a pulpit and speaking to people. But it's worth it, and it's really, really powerful, especially in times of social distancing where people just can't have access to so much material. So investing in that, you can start now, but really, if you start now, in a year or two, you'll have a great body of work where people can access your expertise, your studies, your insights, and stuff like that.
That's great.
Yeah, and I would just add to the I'm really big about scale. How do you scale ideas and scale technology? Because ultimately, you have people that are disciple makers. You are one. People at your church, but if you teach them how to use the tools, then they will leverage those tools to continue what they're already called to do. So I think that's why it's really important. Once they understand how to use Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, then you just unleash them and encourage them not to step back, but to move forward when people are being told to kind of distance themselves. Even though we can't physically meet, we can still meet one-on-one in small gatherings and big gatherings with tools. So the idea is like, hey, I know you're discipling this person or that person. Continue to disciple them. The same way as like this past week, our kids ministry could have easily said, we're not going to do our Bible study this week because there's no way first graders are going to do this. But they just leaned into it and they were honest, like we're going to try this out. So I want to encourage you that once you understand the tools, then you can teach other people to use the tools. And that's ultimately how you care for your community. You as the pastor are not caring for every single individual. You are empowering people, lean heavy into, the priesthood of all believers stuff, like allow people to minister to other people, but it starts with them understanding how to use the tools. And that's why it's just get your key leaders and teach them and then allow them to teach others. I mean, think of it as a disciple making process, even with the tools.
That's really good. Hey, I want to welcome, we're so sorry, those who are on Facebook, we understand you just got on. We've had a lot of problems. I think it's just because so many people are online, so many people are with Zoom. I want to take a second, and Jay, can I just commend you? First of all, the stuff that you're producing is really helpful. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now to Jay's website, and there is a bunch of great material on how to do all this stuff. I just put it in the chat box, and we'll be, of course, linking to Jay's material later. And also Christian. Christian, I just love everything that you've been about, what you've been doing. Just really appreciate. And I'm going to put a link into Third Drive for churches, or Third Drive Faith, I think it's called. In fact, Christian, do you want to say anything about that?
So the link is thirddrive.co/churches. I'll put it on the chat as well. But I'm really passionate about helping, especially those who are unprepared, right? A lot of the churches that have staffs and even marketing staffs, they're prepared and equipped, and it's fantastic. But I'm really passionate about helping churches that are small or medium sized, who want to do this quickly and really jump on it. So we developed this really in a matter of a few days. We developed this coronavirus ready website that you can basically launch in 1 week or less if you get on it and work on it really hard. We were basically developing several templates that are sort of built for virtual reality stuff, small groups, Sunday service, all of that kind of stuff, and shepherding sort of mechanism so you can have access to your shepherd. So if you are one of those churches, just send us a note and we'll see if we can help you quickly. But I think it's really important that the church just seizes the moment and not shrinks and not doesn't get paralyzed. And because this is the time to make disciples. This is the time where people are so aware that we are not in control, and that God is in control, and this is an opportunity to tell people boldly and proclaim the gospel and not shrink back.
That is so good. What I've been trying to encourage our team, our church, and everybody that I can through Discipleship.org and Renew.org and other ministry I'm involved with, is we've got to lean into reality the way that it is. Christians throughout the centuries have faced challenges like what we're heading into, and it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But here's the thing. This is the world in which we, through trials and difficulties, find out what really matters. And what really matters is that we love God and we love people, and that we trust Jesus to show us the way. We seek to be conformed to his image. and that we lean into difficulties and say, this is the world that God has, and the worst thing that can happen to me as a follower of Jesus is that I'm going to die and go to the new heaven and new earth, to be with my Savior and to experience the ultimate goal of my faith. So between now and then, we're going to be people of faith. We're going to lean into this. We're going to try to help as many people as possible to trust and follow Jesus with us and make the biggest difference that we can. I want to share I want to come back to this online forum on disciple making that we're going to be doing. I'm just going to, from Discipleship.org, I want to share the screen. And I just want to encourage people of the great resources on disciple making. So the online forum will begin April 29th. We have some killer good speakers that are listed here, from Bill Hull, who's with the Bonhoeffer Project, written over 20 books on disciple making, to Brooke Hempel, to Drew Hine, to Mark Moore, and everyone that you can see there. And then we're going to have many tracks, 10 tracks, with leaders like Jim Putman, Neil Anderson, really online, helping us to be disciples who make disciples, who remember the mission of Jesus and seek to make the world the kind of place where the church is strong, even if the church is online. So Jay, I'm going to give the last words to you, and just let everybody know we plan to send out an email with some top resources from both Christian and Jay and from Discipleship.org. So Jay, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, a couple resources I would just end on to kind of consider is the coronavirus and the church.com. There's a bunch of online church resources that are listed there. There's also a video course that you were talking about before, Bobby, that I did that's about an hour and 20 minutes about how online small groups work. And that's a free course that's available up on my website, jcrandon.com, and we'll do the link. It'll follow up. There's also a video course that I have, a blueprint for online church, that's free, that you can access. And I want to shout out, I saw actually in the chat people talking about this, the church.digital is a really great resource done by Jeff Reed about different things from setting up cameras. But there's a lot of amazing resources out there. I want to let you know that if you have any questions about online church or what you're doing, you can message me on my website, and I would love to answer you, or at least direct you towards somebody that can get you an answer.
Oh, that's great. Again, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Christian. My tech team has told me that we're going to try to get the video available as soon as we can, but it might be Saturday now, they're saying, because of everything that's happening with Zoom and this environment. So I want to close with a word of prayer, and I want to again thank you, everybody, for joining. God,
thank you, Bobby, for your leadership.
Oh, yeah. God, we just thank you for the opportunity to be disciples who make disciples. And God, I just pray that the church and the people represented listening to these trainings and teachings, that we could rise up and be people who show faith over fear, who show the way of Jesus in the midst of concern and anxiety and tragedy, and that we use it all for your glory, Lord. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.